Welcome to Our Pod, and by that I mean on Wednesdays we read. I'm Hannah.
I'm Laura.
And we are two best friends who do a deep dive into a new book series, one book at a time. Right now we are blazing through the Poppy Wars, and we are finishing up our conversation of part 3 of the Dragon Republic by R.F. Kuang. But before we dive into the final plot and the final thoughts of this book, Laura, what are you reading, watching, and or enjoying?
So, Hannah, I'm kind of boring this week because I haven't finished any books or anything. Haven't really been watching much. But I have been listening to the Newest Olympian with Mike Schubert, and
one of your faves.
I love it. I've honestly been listening to it like nonstop pretty much. That's nice. It's really, really a good podcast. Mike is hilarious. And I also appreciate a lot of his context in terms of like regional info that he provides, because I am definitely a Midwesterner and I do not know anything about New York or New Jersey or anything out east, and him just like providing context like, okay, Percy Jackson, you do not need to say take me to 245th and East Avenue, and he's like, people don't say it that way. I'm like, oh, they don't. So I think it's funny because I'm like, oh, I would totally get in a cab in New York and be like, please take me to 201 West East, whatever.
They would know to take you the long way around.
Yeah, I would definitely have to pay a lot more in a cab, that's for sure. But yeah, I think that his podcast is so fun, so funny, and I have created a pseudo friendship with him. So
a pseudo friendship, okay.
Well, what is it called when you think you're friends with somebody that you don't know?
Parasocial relationship.
Parasocial relationship. Thank you. Not a pseudo friendship. My brain's not working.
You're fine. I just talk about those a lot, so because they fascinate me. So
yeah, he's one of my wannabe friends. So
I get it. Hey, we all have them. So mostly just the Olympians. Are you currently reading anything, or is it just like, nope, not right now, not for me?
I mean, I am reading some stuff, but I am close to finishing, so I want to wait until I'm done to talk about them. But I did do a lot of canning with my family this weekend.
I saw that.
My mom and dad did like a really, really, really big garden this year, and they kind of are at the point where it's like they're overwhelmed with all the vegetables that they have right now. So it's one of those things when you first plant a garden, you're like, oh, we have all these great ideas of all these things we want to plant, and everybody always overdoes it, and they really overdid it this year. So my mom has probably frozen and canned every single day for the past month. She's been
oh my goodness
doing like so many green beans, and we did tons and tons and tons of cucumbers the other day. So
if you guys freeze any green beans, I'll take some.
Okay, we can get some for you.
Yay.
And there's also just a ton of tomatoes that are coming. We're trying to already plan out like what we're going to do with all these tomatoes, because it's a deal where it's like the things come in spurts, but it's like, okay, you can only have so many zucchini breads before you're like, I am done with zucchini. But we're trying to do like zoodles and stuff like that. And
that's fair. Do you guys like canned tomatoes, like stewed tomatoes? Do you guys do like tomato my mom always did tomato juice. She always made like really good tomato juice.
So usually my mom does canned tomatoes, just like the stewed ones,
Yeah.
And my husband's family, they do salsa usually. This year they didn't plant a garden, so we're thinking we're probably going to do some salsa, and then the canned tomatoes. We've never done tomato juice, but what would you use that for? Do you just drink it, or
we use it a lot for homemade chili. You can use it. We kind of use it in everything because we always made tomato juice, so we always had it for like, it makes the best Bloody Marys apparently, but we also put it in chili. A lot of times,
see, we use just the canned tomatoes with like the big tomato pieces in it, for
that's fair
chili and stuff and soups and stuff. But obviously that would not work for Bloody Marys.
Yeah, no, we definitely used it for chili. And then I'm trying to think of what else we used it for. Because like we didn't use it for tomato sauce or anything like that, I don't think. But my mom
We're also
used
contemplating
it for
like a spaghetti sauce.
Yeah.
Like a marinara sauce type thing to do too. It's all
I
just
don't
a
know.
lot of prep work and planning to like figure out,
I
okay, what
know.
things do we need and how much?
My dad gave up
Because
on the garden this year. He did it last year because I think he was
Mhm.
still gung ho about like, I can still be a person without my wife. And then this year he was like, I don't care. So
He's like, grocery stores are there.
I don't even cook. I don't know why I'm doing this.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I will say that one of my favorite things though is like frozen corn. My husband's family, they actually like raise sweet corn, and they have like this
Yeah.
big day where they all get together and they prep all the corn and like cook it and then put it into these bags to freeze. And
Love it.
that's actually the best
Yes.
frozen or like prep ahead stuff from the summer. I don't know why, but it's my favorite out of any of those type of things.
I love frozen corn. That's really all we ever eat. I never eat like canned
Mhm.
corn or anything because I just don't
Canned
like it.
corn is the texture is weird to me. If
Yeah.
I'm gonna use canned corn, it's definitely going in something like a casserole where
Yes.
I'm not like chewing it a ton.
Even
Because
then, I'll get frozen corn over canned corn any day. Like, yeah, I
same.
just can't. I can't do canned corn.
And I'm weird because like I prefer canned green beans to frozen green
Do you
beans.
like the fact that they're like a little bit saltier?
No, it's the squeakiness of the
Hmm.
frozen green beans. Do you know what I'm
Oh,
talking about? How they
I
get a
do know
little
what you're talking
squeaky?
about, but I
That
like the squeakiness.
okay, some of my family members do as well. And
Okay.
it just feels weird on my teeth and I just don't like it. So
Yeah.
I'll still eat them because green beans are like my absolute fave.
Welcome to
But
the veggie
this is
pod.
the veggie pod. We already had the fruit podcast. This is the veggie pod.
Except are tomatoes a veggie or a fruit?
I mean, those are a fruit and corn is a legume.
Yeah.
So it's not totally veggies.
That's true because my mom would always at like Christmas holidays. Did you ever have this where you would be like, "Hey, can we have like a fresh vegetable?" And your parents would be like, "Well, we're having potatoes and corn," and you're like, "That's
You're like,
not
no.
really what I was talking about." Like, yeah,
Yeah, definitely not. But should we talk about some of our other favorite vegetables like broccoli and asparagus and
oh, I love
Brussels
broccoli and
sprouts?
asparagus. I really love Brussels sprouts. My family, like, none of them knew they liked Brussels sprouts until people started cooking with them. Also, like a good, I do love like cauliflower when you put it with other
Mhm.
stuff. I'm not gonna lie.
I like cauliflower by itself.
I do like cauliflower a lot. It's
Like
just so good.
that's one of the few vegetables that I enjoy raw
Have we talked about the
over
fact that like
cooked.
I think both of our parents like mixed lima beans with cottage cheese, or was that just mine?
Yes.
Yeah, that baffles me still.
I think that's weird, but I think it's a region specific thing.
Yeah, just
Like,
so
did
people
your
know.
family also make that Braunschweiger dip and call it liver paste?
Well, that was we can get that at like a restaurant in
Yeah, I
in
mean
our
that's
hometown. Like
the,
we used to just order that and then take it
mhm.
home with us. Like it
It's
was
a
just something
very
we got at that
popular
one
thing in
restaurant.
this area.
Yeah, it is very salty, but
Oh
very good
yeah.
on crackers.
It's always at my family gatherings. Like my one aunt makes it all the time. And I think she makes it better than the local restaurant, but
I'm sure she
she's like, "Oh,
does.
it's not that hard to make." And I'm believing her, but I've never made it, so I don't know. But
Yeah.
yes, it is very salty, but I often like just gravitate towards it
I
whenever
mean,
there's
it's
any
really
kind of
good,
holiday.
guys. Liverwurst, liver paste, yeah. Um
I think it's just like Braunschweiger and cream cheese mixed.
Oh, that's interesting. Guys, tweet at us your weirdest delicacy.
I feel like as Midwesterners, we don't get that out there with
No,
food.
but like it is bizarre. Like lima beans and cottage cheese. It's all
Do you eat
bland.
other things with cottage cheese though?
No, I don't really eat cottage cheese that much anymore. Like I'm not
Okay, I love cottage cheese. I get it all the time. I'll eat it as a snack, but
okay. So I used to
I
eat
grew
it
up
a
eating it
lot
with
as a
fruit.
child. Like lots of people eat it with fruit. I used to love cottage cheese as a child, but
Mm-hmm,
again, it's like one of those things when Hannah loves something, she loves it plain because like she
mm-hmm,
wants more of it, not like the
mm-hmm.
actual thing. And so that was kind of how I was with cottage cheese, where I was like, no, I'll just eat it like out of the tub if I had to. One of my sisters is there's a well-known story that she hated cottage cheese so much that she like yelled up the stairs to my mom that she was done with dinner. My mom was like, did you eat your cottage cheese? And she was like, no. My mom was like, well, you eat it or you get a spanking. And my sister considered it, raised her head up and said, I think I'll take the spanking. And my mom never made her eat cottage cheese again because she was like, I think we're done with this. I think she doesn't like it. So, to this day, she's still like, that is the grossest thing. I would have taken the spanking any day.
Amazing.
So that is everyone, outside the context of you shouldn't spank your kids. So many studies have come out with that. But yeah.
I think it's weird how there's like such condemnation almost about like people who don't like certain foods that are generally considered like healthy, quote unquote, And I think it's one of those things like if people just genuinely do not like something, it's fine. Like,
right. It doesn't hurt anyone. Just
like
let them
I do not like peas. And I'll eat them if they're in something, but I definitely will not eat them by themselves.
Again, I won't eat canned peas, but I do love frozen peas.
I think that's a pretty common take, actually, that people prefer the frozen peas.
It's because canned peas taste like mushy grossness. Like they're so bad. I do not like them.
They're all gross to me.
Fair.
But it's one of those things where it's like, I remember I'm 30 years old now and I still get like crap from people that they're like, eat your peas. Why come you don't want to eat peas? Just eat some peas. I'm like, I hate them. I don't want to eat them.
Go away. Like this is none of your business.
I'd rather eat this pile of cauliflower that I have over here.
Me too, honestly. But I do like peas. I'm not going to lie.
I mean, that's fair.
Also, just like don't rag on things that people like. Like as long as it's healthy, as long as it's not hurting someone, let it go.
Exactly. As long as it's not harmful to other people.
Be like Elsa. Let it go.
Let it go.
Let it go. The cold doesn't bother me anymore because I've had peas.
And the other thing I was going to talk about, you sent me a question on Instagram.
Yes,
so I was asking if people had any questions about my goats because I was all excited because I got a new goat.
Well, I got a new goat.
Yes. He is my new herd buck. His name is Troubadour.
What does a herd buck mean, Laura?
So he is basically going to be the sire of all of the new kids.
Ooh.
Kids are babies in goat language for those. So
you have a new baby daddy.
Essentially, yes. So his role is pretty important because usually you only keep like one or two of those. I mean, depending on how many goats you have, obviously big herds will have several, but I don't have very big herd at the moment. So I tend to only have one or two. Fair enough. He is my new addition and I'm really excited about it because I'm hoping to get some interesting color combinations out of him and everything. So that'll be fun.
He looks very cute. Does he have a lot of personality or is he just kind of chilling right now?
So this is getting into like the funny story thing. You asked a question like, are there any funny stories with your goats? And actually most of them involve like goats escaping.
Of course.
Because they are escape artists. So I got home and Troubadour was out. I got home from work today and he was just like walking around. And like, okay, well, that's interesting. So I just grabbed him.
For everyone, he's in quarantine right now, so he's not supposed
to be in quarantine. Usually when you introduce a new animal, if you can, you like to keep them kind of separate for a little bit, just in case there's any kind of like, sniffly type stuff or respiratory illness or anything like that that could pass over. But he got out right away and was just kind of walking around. And so I put him back in his pen, like, okay, doesn't look like much has been disturbed here, whatever. Well, I'm doing stuff outside, doing the rest of my chores, feeding my chickens and everything. And I turn around and he had climbed up on top of a like side board that the shed is built in a way that there are boards that go up the side to support it. He had delicately balanced his little body on there. This is like a 2-inch board that he was balanced on. And then he hopped over the gate.
Of course he did.
Like a reindeer. And I'm just like, okay, so that's interesting. So I'm hoping he's still in. I haven't checked my camera yet. So I obviously need to be doing that a little bit more. At least this first night. And I'm hoping maybe my husband can come home and kind of reinforce this pen a little bit.
Maybe.
We're hoping he doesn't have to be by himself for too long. And we were planning on putting him in with the does actually next month, so we can start the breeding season and everything. But this is a little bit early for us. But anyways, you were asking what some of like the funniest stories I had with goats were. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to use my influencing powers to send people over to our pod to listen to my podcast. That's what I will do.
Influencer.
Hashtag influencer. All 13 of you that saw my stories today, you come over and listen to our pod. Anyways, so I've grown up with goats, basically. I've had them since I was like 6 years old. And my sister and I used to show them in 4-H. And I have a younger sister, and she used to have a goat that would escape constantly. And there was like no keeping this goat in. It would shimmy underneath pens, like literally lay on its side and wiggle out underneath pens. It knew how to unlatch gates. It was good at like wiggling chains off of gates so that they would open and everything, which would help it escape, and also other ones. But anyways, my parents got to the point where they were just tired of like reinforcing all their pens. And so my mom just came up with a solution that like anytime this goat would get out, she would just put a lead rope on it and hand it to my sister. And my sister had to walk it around the yard. And my sister grew tired of this really quickly. And she at one point went up on the front porch with the goat and was knocking on the front door. And my mom answered the door and she was like, "Mom, I don't want to walk this goat. Can you take it?" And my mom just said no and shut the door right in her face. And my sister screamed at the top of her lungs. She was probably 8 or so. "Damn it!" Like literally screamed. Oh. And I remember being out in the yard, and my dad was also out in the yard, and we all heard it. So it was a loud scream, but that was a very funny moment to me. Another funny moment was the first time we brought a buck home and put him in with the does. I was little at this point, so this was the first time we'd ever had a buck, and a mature buck goat is a sight to behold. They are kind of gross creatures, honestly. Like, they pee on themselves. They smell really bad. When Troubadour is full grown, I will share some more pictures of him. And I can actually share some pictures of my other buck that is a mature buck. He is quite gross. You cannot get within a small distance, sometimes a large distance, without smelling like them.
Like most men. No.
It's representative. I'm just kidding. But they are really gross, honestly. Yeah. And it's a sight. But anyways, we brought home this buck and we went to put him in with our does, and these were does that we had since they were babies, so they had never like seen a buck at all, I don't think.
Okay.
And honestly, they're not going to be as shocked by it. They'll probably think that he's cool. But one of the does like came around the corner of the barn and got a glimpse of this buck, and her ears literally went like straight up, and she like froze, and her eyes like kind of bugged out, kind of just like a what the hell moment. And I will never like forget the look on that goat's face, like, what is that?
What
because
did you do?
Honestly, that's what I would think too. What is that?
That's amazing. I love it.
It was just a very funny moment, and maybe it's you had to be there moment, but I will share some more pictures of these bucks because
please
they are something.
Grossness and all.
Oh yeah. If only I could share the smell via the internet to people. Okay. I mean, you can't get the full effect until you actually smell them. And I've heard people say, "Oh, it smells like a skunk," and I'm like, no, it's worse. I don't know how to explain it. But yeah, I will give updates. We will follow Troubadour from his cute stage to his growth stage.
Much like any child going into puberty.
Yes. Yep. Also, I just listened today to the Turning Red episode of the Bechdel cast, and that was a good one. A lot about puberty, and definitely just go listen to all their episodes. They're amazing.
Please listen to the Bechdel cast, and then just tell us how much you love them, because it's almost impossible not to.
They're also some of my parasocial relationship friends.
Oh, for sure. I feel like they're the free space on Our Pod Bingo. Did they mention the Bechdel cast?
I've been listening to them since 2016, and I love them so much. Like, it was the first podcast that I genuinely loved.
Yeah, and Laura sang their praises until I started listening to them, and then I loved them as well. So
it was one of the best recommendations I've ever been able to give. And whenever people want recommendations for podcasts, I'm always like, the Bechdel cast. You have to listen to the Bechdel cast.
They don't need our support, but they have it.
They have it. Caitlin and Jamie forever. Hannah, what have you been reading and watching and doing?
Well, I went to Nashville this weekend to visit my friend Rima, and we went and saw a Pod Save America tour show. Yeah. It was very cool. I was 30 feet from Vice President Al Gore.
That's cool.
Which is very funny. He was very funny. He was he had to do a game where he had to guess if a senator said it in 2020 or 1995 about the climate crisis. And at one point you could get a bonus point if you knew who said it. And at one point they were he's I think it's 1995. And they were yes. And it was someone who said it to you. And he's well, it has to be this guy. He was just really funny, and he had a lot of fun. So that was cool. My friend and I were really weirded out. Security was just really strict, and we were what's going on? And then we got inside, and someone's the former vice president's here. And we're oh, that
makes sense.
They got to check for those weapons. But while I was gone, I had quite a few books and stuff. I've listened to a couple audiobooks. I listened to 9 Perfect Strangers by Leanne Moriarty.
Is that the TV show?
Yeah, it's a TV show with Nicole Kidman, who Leanne Moriarty has trapped in her basement to star in all of her films. She was also in the TV show Big Little Lies, which is also a Leanne Moriarty show. So I don't know what kind of hold she has on Nicole Kidman, but it's there. But it's a weird one. I know Veronica listened to it as well, or read it, I'm not sure, but it's these people go to a wellness retreat, and it's run by a woman who wants to try something new, and it all kind of devolves, and it was fine. I kind of promised myself I would probably never read a Leanne Moriarty book, just one of those authors who I was do I need to experience one of her books? I've watched Big Little Lies. I could have watched 9 Perfect Strangers and just not read this book, but I listened to it. It was a book, it was fine. I would say it's 3 stars. It's nothing special. And
what was it that pushed you to read it, or that drew you to it? I guess because I feel I knew that you were kind of meh, I don't need to read that.
It was available on Libby, and I had nothing better to do, or no other books that were speaking to me. I kind of downloaded a couple of audiobooks off Libby where I was I don't know, but they're available, and I'll see.
Sure.
Because that's the other one. I did The Gilded Wolves by Roshani Chachki. And it was also fine. It was YA, but also it was still relatively dark. And I liked part of it, but parts of it just didn't work for me as a YA. I thought some of the character stuff could have been more interesting, and the action parts kind of lost me. I wasn't as interested in them, and anytime one came up, I blanked out, which we all know Hannah's not great at action scenes. Just wait until she tries to describe what's happening in the war, because it's not gonna be pretty. But sometimes I would forget what got them, because there's different things. Well, they'll be in a building, and then all of a sudden they have to get out of a puzzle or whatever. And I'm how did they end up in this building? If I can't remember the scene setting, that's not a good
I was just saying, that's not the best sign. But
no, but I also will say that maybe this just shouldn't have been me reading an audiobook, because the narrators, because this is a diverse author, she had a lot of diverse characters, and I don't know what they paid those narrators, but they were like, today is my moment. They did all the accents.
They went all out.
They went all out, and I kept being like, that's fine. Like, I understand. And also, this is already a YA adventure novel. Like, I don't need you to like scene set for me. Like, I have my imagination. It's okay.
When you listen to an audiobook, do you prefer if they have a full cast, if it's just one narrator, or if the author narrates it?
Well, so this is two different narrators. And I actually do like when there's like, if it's POV, they usually have a girl and then a boy. And I actually like that. I think that that's nice because like you can kind of get into the head. They kind of have a little bit of the movement. And like, I also,
and you can differentiate between the voices too and tell.
Yes.
Very easily.
I like that in murder mysteries and stuff. But I will also say that the male narrator in this book was not very good in my opinion. He sounded way too staccato and like not as flowy with like the narration, and that like made me lose interest in it. So that's one of the first audios where I was like, this isn't a great audio.
Sure.
But I also read Funny You Should Ask by Alyssa Sussman. It's a contemporary romance about a woman who 10 years ago, she had to do an interview with like an up and coming star right before he became James Bond. And they kind of have like a weekend spent together, and it like makes both their careers. And then it comes like back 10 years later, she's just coming off of a divorce. He's just getting out of rehab, and they're supposed to like redo their magical weekend together to like start about the news article. And it's like about their history and everything. I really like that book. It was really cute. The ending, not to ruin anything, but it has certain tropes in romance that do not fly with me.
Okay.
Just like some stuff where I'm like, I don't really care. And then I also read
There's only one bed.
No, I don't mind only one bed. That's fine. It's like almost, I don't love when romances feel rushed when there are very few stakes to the rushing. It just, sometimes I want my romance to sit a little bit longer.
Sure.
And you know, that was like the Fix Her Up book I read, where I was like, they haven't even really been dating for that long. And they're both like, this is it. And it's like, is it? You guys have been dating for 2 weeks.
Right.
So stuff like that doesn't always work for me, where the reality of the world outweighs the escapism of the romance. I guess that's the best way to put it. I like when I can escape into a romance, and if the realities of the world have me questioning it, I can't escape. So, but it was very good. It's all over Bookstagram. People love it. And it's cute. It was very cute and fun for a vacation book. And then I also read Moonlight and the Pearler's Daughter by Lizzie Pook. It was a book sent to me by a book club thing, and it was sent to me through a book club like choice option thing, and it is a book club book.
Okay.
If you want a light book that's like historical fiction, I thought of you when I was reading it, not because like I think you would enjoy the story, but it has a lot of descriptions of Australia that I think you would like the natural world and like how nature happens in the book is very Laura. But like the plot itself, it's a very short book for how much mystery they try to push into it. Like it's 288 pages, and I kept being like, this is weird. Like, why is it so short? Like you're dealing with nature for at least 60 or like, you know, on a certain amount of these pages. This is just a very bizarre thing to decide to do. But it was free and I read it. So I upheld my end of the bargain. And then for watching, I started Never Have I Ever season 3. I haven't finished it yet.
How is it?
I love that show so much.
I read some good things about it, actually.
Have you watched it?
No, I haven't watched it. I just saw like 3 articles about it.
Everyone loves the show, and it's because it's so good. I love this show.
People are loving this season, though, specifically.
This season is really good because, like, I think the first 2 seasons, they're very interesting, but like some of the stuff.
Sometimes second seasons are difficult. I will say.
And like Mindy Kaling, she always has, you know, the mean boy crush and then some like prettier boys. And so I like that they're letting this girl be a high school student. And like, I've seen a ton of people who are like, she's terrible. And I'm like, yeah, but she's also in high school. Like, high schoolers can be terrible.
I was gonna say,
yeah,
kids can be awful. So
it's very interesting. So I can't wait to finish it. And then I also started Blackbird, which is a drama series on Apple TV. And it's based on a true story about a man who was put in prison for like selling cocaine and drugs and guns and all that stuff. And he gets sentenced to 10 years. And as part of a deal, he has to be put into a mental health facility and try to figure out if a man in there who they deem a serial confessor, so who might have admitted to crimes he did not commit, is telling the truth about any of the murders, because they think he's a serial murderer.
Oh, geez.
And
that's like fascinating though.
It's really fascinating. I watched the first 3 episodes with my friend, and then I fell asleep on the 4th episode. But it's really good. It's really interesting. It has Taron Egerton in it, and they did a great job of showing every single pore on his face to make him look like a real man in the 90s. And it has like Greg Kinnear as they kind of do flashbacks, so you're seeing different things. And they also had Ray Liotta before he passed away. So it was very good. I highly recommend both. If you guys haven't seen Never Have I Ever, watch it. Laura, watch Never Have I Ever. You know, it's a great show.
I'll have to try and work it in. I haven't been watching very much TV lately. I've just like not been feeling it.
That's fair.
I've been just like going to bed early and zoning out, that kind of thing. Yeah.
You know, you're allowed to take mental health breaks for your brain. Sometimes your brain just needs a break.
I think that's what it is. I'm just a little overstimulated. So
that is fair. And everyone should understand that and let their body rest sometimes. But let's overstimulate that brain with a rousing discussion of part 3 of the Dragon Republic.
It really ramps up.
There's a war, a betrayal, and then everyone goes home.
Not quite. But if that was the summary, we need to do a little bit more digging.
Are you sure? I thought we could end it here. Next week. Follow us at our pod. All right. So we enter in. We remember that Katai and Rin had to make their way back to Arlong.
They are now
the last book. They are now bonded.
They're anchor twins.
They are anchor twins. I don't know why, but all of a sudden I thought of my walls are the color of your eyes.
Is that the hating game?
That is the hating game.
I need to watch that.
Oh God, it's so bad.
Are they also anchor twins in that?
Probably. She's the short one. Okay. He's the tall one. I'm gonna call you shortcake. God, I hate romances. So bad. Oh, it's so bad. Okay. Just watch Set It Up instead. It's one of my favorites.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I love Set It Up so much. So anyway, it takes them 29 days to get back to Arlong. They run to the wall and they convince the soldiers Rin is who she says she is. Before they get back, Katai makes her study how to make fire. They note that like she can usually produce it out of her mouth and her hands, which is just the funniest thing of like imagining Rin being like
just breathing fire like a dragon.
Yeah. I'm sure they would make the digital effects look much cooler in the TV show and or movie.
Did you have this thought? I had this thought, like I always associate dragons with fire, and they're a water god in this. And I guess I'm just confused a little bit by that. But phoenixes I also associate with fire, so that made sense to me.
So I do know that there are different types of dragons, because again, I just read Priory of the Orange Tree, and they discuss like water dragons and how those are.
Okay.
Yeah. And
see, I know almost nothing about dragons except like Smaug.
Oh, yeah. And then like
that's
Shang-Chi,
my frame of reference.
Shang-Chi has like water-ish type dragons.
Oh, okay.
So they have both. It's not just fire dragons. So we're just, but I agree with
very
you.
limited
For a
in my
while,
knowledge of dragons.
For a while, I thought Nezha was going to be able to make fire, and then when he made water, I was like, "Oh, I guess that makes sense." Rin already has fire.
Two sides of the same coin, Hannah.
And Laura, you have
the complete
Rin
balance.
has fire, and Nezha has water, And Katai has earth because he's grounded, and Venka has air because she shoots arrows, and together they make up the 4 elements.
Avatar.
The last airbender.
So that means that who is the avatar?
Ramsa.
Okay.
It's Ramsa. No. But anyway, he like has her practice. He makes her do it. Like she keeps worrying that she's going to hurt him, but he's like, no, we need to test your limits. So he has her like set fire out all around them, and it hurts him a lot. And he's screaming, and he's like, no, just keep going. Just keep going.
She's like, does it hurt? And he's like, no, keep going. It's like, you're screaming in pain.
You're so obviously lying. But it is kind of nice to see Rin like have to deal with the ramifications of someone actually like feeling pain that she loves for her.
Well, I think it's definitely one of those things where like Kuang is trying to kind of show that in a very first, I don't know what the connection would be there, first degree connection, how the things that she does actually like cause pain and affect people.
Right.
And so when she has to feel that in the person that she cares the most about, second most about, it really kind of hits home for her, like, okay, wow, I need to be careful about this and really have this honed in, because if this could happen to someone, it could be really bad.
Yeah. So they do get back to Arlong. They walk through the city. And she runs into Nezha, who's like super excited to see her or whatever. People are asking about all the missing people from the last battle, and she doesn't know. She sees the psych and learns that Jinja is missing after the battle. And she tells them about Kara dying, and she has to go see Viceroy. She tells Viceroy about Phelan carrying the wind and being a prior psych member. He does ask about Jinja, so he does care a modicum for his children. And she's like, I can't tell you, I didn't see what happened to him. And then she tells him she wants the psych back, and he agrees. He finds out about Sork and Sira dying by the Hesperian, and like kind of who had caused it. And he's kind of like, the Hesperians can't know that other people killed them. You should have tried to protect them. And she was like, what was I supposed to do? Like, we couldn't do anything. They just killed the leader. And he's like, we need the Hesperians' help, and you're the cause of all our problems. And Viceroy lost all my sympathy in this third part. I was interested in Viceroy until about this section.
It's one of those things where you come to the same kind of recollection about Viceroy, or the same epiphany about Viceroy as the characters. So
yeah, and that's, good on her for showing us Rin, like getting us so deep into Rin's own psyche that like we were rooting for him too.
Yeah.
And like we had blind spots for him as well, even though everyone was telling us not to. It's almost like that's we
were telling ourselves not to.
Exactly. And Rin was telling herself not to. So everyone knew, and we all still trusted him, that sneaky man.
It was not that sneaky.
No, he was literally not sneaky. The flags were all
He was
red.
not sneaky at all.
Just like the t-shirt of Team Nezha, his flags were all
a
red.
Giant red flag.
And then he's like, well, the Hinterlanders. And she's like, no, they're called the Katrayas or the Naimads. And he's like, well, no one can know about this. No one can know about the fall of August. Like, keep this to yourself. And he says that the Hesperians are super paranoid after what happened and seeing the error god. And maybe Phelan is the last airbender.
There we go.
There we go. And they are like, they think that their entire civilization is ruled by chaos, and they're just becoming extreme religious zealots. And now they're paranoid. He notes that they are changing the rules on them to get them to like get aid. And she's like, they're always changing the rules. And he's like, well, they don't want to help, but we need them. She leaves, and Nezha's like, can I talk to you in a private place? And then he's like, I need you to listen to me. And she's like, okay, and he's like, I told you to listen. I am emotional.
Can you just shut up for one
second? You just like for 1 second pretend like you actually care about me and want to hear from me. And she's like, not really, but I do love you. And so he tells her about Mingja and how he was the favorite child and how everyone loved him and dressed him in gold and jade, and they should have known better. And then one day they went out to the grotto area and the dragon ate his little brother in front of Nezha, and then took Nezha as one of his own and like printing him with the spirit that he now has to control. And he says it's always painful. And the dragon just wants him to come back to him, but if he does, he will just be part of his collection. And Rin is like, yeah, guess what? We're all in pain. And we all have to do this. And she points
like,
out,
but I didn't choose it. You guys got to choose. She's like, we didn't get to choose it. And he's like,
we didn't understand what we were calling
but
down.
I didn't know.
But mine is a special kind of pain because I was born into a much better society than you. You never got a choice, but I have the privilege of being sad about it. So,
Nezha, you dumb boy.
Dumb man. And then she's like, she points out that he thinks like he is better than her and different than her because he is in a place of power. And he says that he thinks that all spirally should have been killed because of what they could do. So, and he stomps away and she considers going after him and apologizing. And then she says like, something is broken between them way worse than all the other fights. And it's like, really, Rin? Every time something breaks between you two, this is nothing new.
Every time she has thoughts like these, I'm like, this is really the straw that breaks the camel's back for you? Really? And then she just like,
not him physically hitting you when you guys were having an argument. This is what doesn't know. Then she goes over to the site to figure out how to go after Phelan. They say that the last time Tyrion and Alton just lured him into a cave and kept stabbing him until he was a pincushion. And then they mirrored him. And they're like, I don't think that'll work a second time.
I don't think so.
And then Rin finds out that the Federation is still in the Southern Territories and they've been going after citizens there. And now citizens have all fled to Arlong and they are now refugees. So she goes out walking after midnight looking for Fang. No, she goes out into the Southern Territories. She starts hearing people who speak with the Brewster dialect. She realizes that they're all afraid of her, so she puts on clothing much like the clothes she would have worn way back when. And she keeps asking about the tutor. And then she finds Kasegi. He takes her to see his mom, saying that his father died by suicide with opium. And Auntie Fang is like less than thrilled to see her. And she asks Rin, she's like, could you get us food? And Rin's like, what, they don't feed you? And she's like, not enough. And she tells Rin that Rin owes them for taking care of her. And Rin is like, what the fuck? You tried to marry me off. You did not help me. And
it's like, I did the best I could. Give me some food.
Again, Auntie Fung makes a point when she's like, I tried to feed you. You would have been in the best position out of anyone in this town. Like, just because it wasn't good enough for you didn't mean I didn't take care of you. Like, you were an orphan I had to take in. And Rin is like, I've suffered. I've gone to war. And Auntie Fung is pretty much like,
she's like, we all suffered.
Yeah, she's like, life is war. We've all been at war. Like, you're now a respected person and you have food. So like, what can you do for us? And so it's almost like, it's almost like Auntie Fung is making similar arguments to Rin that she just made to Nezha. And she doesn't get the hypocrisy. And then Auntie Fung is like, why did you come here? Like, why did you come looking for us? You don't want to actually be a part of this. And Rin is kind of like, this was a mistake. And then she finds out that they're just having a lot of issues with the refugees. They have like some space, but there are a lot of people in it. And there's simply no food for refugees. Venka and her start to become like begrudging friends. Actually, their relationship was my favorite out of this third part.
I kind of dig their relationship. And honestly, like Venka's one of those characters where it's like Kuang's trying to make you like not like her a little bit. I feel like with some of her responses and stuff that she has, where you're like, I don't know. And I'm like, I kind of dig Venka.
We'll get into it because I actually don't think Kuang's purpose is to make you hate Venka. I think it's to make you see someone who actually is filled with trauma, doing
a different take on trauma. Because like we kind of had the Nezha form of trauma where Nezha's like, no, but I shouldn't have suffered. I just, I don't deserve this. You should feel bad for me. I'm the victim here.
And then you have like the Rin of like, I'm just angry at the world. And then you have Katai, who's like, I don't think I've suffered, so I'm going to take on more and more and make sure I suffer so that I can help my friends. And then you have Venka, who is like, I have been through the ringer. Do not judge me for how I act in this world. And like, I have been disowned by my family. I do not have full use of my body. So like, I will do what I wish to do in this because you have no right to disrespect me out of everything I've done. And I think that that is a very, I think you and I would definitely like the person who acted like that.
I really liked Venka.
Yeah, I kept thinking like, why does Rin and Venka work so much for me in this section when like Nezha and Rin do not work for us at all?
Like, they ever worked for us though?
They've never worked for us. But like Venka was also awful to Rin. And like, for some reason, we're both like much more lenient with Venka about like, it seems like she's learned.
Right.
So, but anyway, like she and Venka start to become like begrudging friends who just hang out all the time. And they're just kind of like, I guess you're who I have left. And they're out one day and Venka finds a baby who looks like they're not breathing. And she almost throws her into the water saying that the baby is gone. And Rin
she can tell that the baby's alive. She just like says that the baby's dead. And Rin's like, no, it looks like it's still breathing.
And she like takes the baby. Rin gets the baby help, and she kind of like points out to Venka that like, I think you were about to murder that baby, and
she was like, you knew that it was alive.
And Venka's like, I would have saved that baby from like the fate of the world if you would just kind of let me go through with it. So you know, it's getting dark out there. They say that wartime is getting harder and harder, and sympathy is scarce. And then she also says that like Viceroy believes that you shouldn't abuse soldiers or like prisoners of war, but he keeps treating the southern provinces like they're mud. It's almost like it's a theme. And everyone around her is like, yeah, Viceroy has no use for these people. So like, it does not matter. Then the Empress sends someone to speak to Viceroy, and they note that he's not a general. He's too low on the totem pole for them to actually have any power. And he brings in rotting baked dumplings filled with meat. And he tells us that it is the body of Jinja. And
that it's Jinja. And he wants them to eat it. And it's disgusting.
And Rin kills him immediately. And the Empress sent a paper saying the generals are coming and her empire is in a stronger position and all of them will die. They talk on what to do because the South needs help with the Federation, and Viceroy wants to ignore what's going on with Federation because they need to keep Arlong to keep power. Rin agrees with him, and Nezha is frustrated because people will die. He tries to talk to Rin to like being on his side, and she stands with Viceroy, and she's like, I'm doing my job. Maybe you should do yours, Nezha. Rin and Katai strategize. The Psyche will be delaying the fleet, and Katai will be out of harm's way because if he dies, she dies, and that's not good. Rin reforges the trident and says she's no longer going to be in Alton's shadow, and the guy makes it into 2 swords for her. And they know that they're going to be fighting as much as they can. They are going to set up bombs from Ramza to keep people upstream. And they do set them off. Then they see people still coming down, and they're just kind of watching like this entire thing slowly come towards Arlong.
Right.
She and the Psyche are out, and they're all like, oh, you and Nezha in love. And she's like, ew, go away.
She gets so mad about it though that it's like, come on, you guys
everyone
literally are in love. Like, come on.
Just have sex already. I don't think you guys are actually in love. I think you guys are heavily in lust with one another. And maybe if you have sex, it might make it better. It's just horny 20-year-olds. I just don't trust them to know what love is at this moment in time. But anyway, they call her out and she's like, I'm not in love with Nezha. Like, I want to. And then the rest of the book, she's like, I either want to kick him or kiss him all at once. And then the Psyche.
Misery.
I mean, I think it was decided in this book. The Psyche talk about the need for fighting and how it will never end for them, that like the gods they call will kind of create the fact that they will always need some kind of push forward. And suddenly they see a fortress floating down, and it's the Empress's navy with thousands of soldiers, and they don't have the mobility, but they can get as close as they can to the city and then swarm it with all of their manpower. So they all kind of realize they're pretty much screwed. Even worse, when Rin sees the flying flag of the Snake Province, and we find out that Solon defected back to the Empress. And she goes,
when you read this, were you like shocked?
I think I was like, again, it's one of those things where I'm like, oh, I should have seen that happen. Cause like, of course, Solon went back. Like he was the only one who seemed
there were very few like shocking moments to me in this, but this was one of them where I was like, oh crap, I can't believe that.
I could believe it because he never really wanted to be. It's like the whole like, how does power actually help?
Mhm.
You know, like he was actually trying to help his people. And I think a huge theme of this book is like, war is nonsense at the end of the day, and it makes people, no one's a winner in war. And so I could see him defecting to try to save his people, because again, he's one of those people who thought it's about the people when it's about war and taking over at this point in time. So
what'd you think about his letter?
I thought it was just, I did find the letter a little shocking, because he's like, I mourn for my family. And it's like, holy crap, man. Like you really defected if you're all.
He was kind of like, I don't care about my family. This is all for the greater good. So sorry about that family. Like, ooh, yikes.
So that was very strange. She goes to see Viceroy, and he talks about how, he like gives her the letter, and yeah, you're right. He talks about how it's his obligation to his people to make sure that they're being protected, and he doesn't see how they could possibly win here. And so they're pretty much screwed. Kasegi comes in and gets Rin and asks for her help. As she's like walking around that night, she follows him and is led to the leaders of the southern provinces. And she's like, you tricked me, Kasegi. You told me you needed help. And he's like, well, I want you to talk to them, because they all want to defect from the Republic and make sure that all of their people are safe. And they try to like convince her to come with them to keep them protected pretty much, and to like return home away from all of this fighting with the Republic and the Empire. And she says no. And they're like, they try to insult her by saying she wants to be like the North, but she can never be one of them. She is a Southerner through and through. And she's like, I actually am the last Spearly, so I have no loyalty to you, and you guys can't leave, because without me, you guys have nothing and you don't have any power. And she sees on their face that she is correct. And so then Kasegi goes to take her back. She notes he's mad, and she's like, so you're mad at me? And he's like, yeah, you're a terrible person. Like, I want you to help our people, and you never reached out to me, and you just left.
Like, you could have just wrote a letter. And she was like, oh.
And she's like, well, I thought it was best. Like, you probably wouldn't even remember me. And he's like, I grew up with you were my sister. Like, that's how I saw you. And you just left me, and you never recognized that I might want to get out of our area, and I might want to leave. And she's like, well, I had to work hard. You could have worked hard. And he's like, you could have like been there for me. And he kind of points out,
I had to work hard after you were gone, like constantly.
And he's like, you never considered me. And you got to go and be on your own adventures. And she's like, it wasn't an adventure. I was at war. And he's like, everyone was at war. You left us to die, and you were never going to come back to us. And so they kind of have that moment. And then she comes upon a Hesperian man raping a Nakaran woman. Rin kind of sees Venka. She kind of sees red over everything that's going on, and she murders him by burning the lower half of his body, starting with the family jewels. And she knows she's in trouble because it's obvious that she murdered him. She's the only one who can control fire like that. And she knows that if the Hesperians find out, it's the perfect opportunity to say that they're going to back out from any kind of deal they possibly had. And so Rin is kind of like, I don't care that he's dead, but like, don't tell anyone about this. And then she goes to check on the girl, and the girl's like, don't worry, this has definitely happened to me before. So it's just not great.
Disgusting. Ugh.
So anyway, we find out that she had to drag the body like across town, of course. And she tells
very subtle
that she hit him underwater in rocks. And she's like, no one saw me. And he's like, if people find out, like, this is bad, Rin, they're going to notice he's missing. It's not like the Hesperians have a ton of people here. Like, they keep a track of them. And she's like, I know, but like, I couldn't take the chance that they're not going to come. And he's like, they're never coming. Like, I understand what you did. You did what you have to do, but like, this was ridiculous. They're never coming. They're never going to help. They were always going to dick us around. So they kind of sit on the floor together. And she talks about how there are a lot of conspiracy theories about the Poppy Wars and the Hesperians. And there is one floating around that the Hesperians let the Muganese invade Nikata on purpose, and said that they think Visera knew the Federation was going to launch an invasion and neither acted to get rid of the Empire or make it much weaker so they could come in. And Katai is like, yeah, that tracks. And she's like, what? And he's like, no, Visera's really calculating. Like, he's been building these ships for years and years and years, and he didn't take them out before. So, like, guess what was happening? They were screwing us over. They also note that the Hesperians likely delayed in the Second Poppy War to kind of keep out of things and drag their feet so that many would die, and they would have all of this unrest to make sure that there was less, progress and everything. So it's great. They talk about how they don't really know what to do. She's like, I guess we'll likely die. And then he's like, not necessarily. I have Deus Machina wings for you. He takes her and he's
I am an inventor.
I invented something. And I only am telling you about it right now, a night before. And you're going to become perfect at doing this in an instant. No logistics at all. Like, you're just good at it.
And that's kind of what happens.
That is kind of what happens. He built her wings out of iron and leather, and says that she can use it like they call it something, but it's a hot air balloon. He's like, I've seen hot air balloons around. You could use this like a hot air balloon and put some hot air up into these wings, and then they will fly for you. And so she has to practice for a single night, and she gets zero sleep, and she's still able to go into war fresh-faced and bushy-tailed. And she goes out flying that night, and she sees the words on the wall, and she kind of realizes like the whole nothing lasts or the world doesn't exist kind of talks about the realities of like their world. It's filled with men, but it's an illusion because the gods really rule everything. And like, this is nothing to them. And they're all just kind of fighting for their own illusory control. So then she lands because she's now good at it. And they realize she'll need cover while she flies in her hot air balloon wings. But she can't really trust people, and she's not sure, like they don't want all of this getting out. So she goes to Venka, and she gives her Deus Machina bow and arrow.
Well, what's it made of, like silver or something?
Yeah, it's like a silver bow of some sort. I forget what it's called. But it's amazing.
Venka's reaction though is like really sad because she's like, I don't deserve this because I'm not able to use it fully. And they're like, no, we've seen you shoot, you're really good. And she's like, I don't deserve it. Do you know how much this is worth? I'm like, oh my gosh, crushing.
I know. And she's like, this is really weird. Oh, it's a silkworm thorn bow. So
okay,
it is very,
so
very
really
rare.
lightweight and nice, probably.
And it's easier for her to use with one hand because she does not have full use of her body.
Mm-hmm.
And then she's like, but I'm not allowed to fight. And Rin's like, yes, you are. You're part of the psych. And she's like, thank you, Commander. And it's very heartfelt and sweet. So then they are preparing for battle. She goes up to the cliffs where she's at with Katai and Venka, and then they also find out that like all the people from the north are taken to a safe area up in the mountains, but there quote unquote isn't enough room for the southerners, and they're being placed like on the edge of kind of the battlefield. So like if people don't feel like going over there, they won't die, but otherwise they're definitely just going to be cannon fodder. Awesome. And they note that Chang'an would likely want a land battle. They are with all the commanders at one point in General Hu wants them to surrender, and Viceroy is like, good idea. You're relieved from duty. Get out. And they also talk about how they're going to try to take down Phelan, and Rin is like, good luck with that. At the end of the meeting with the council, Viceroy brings Rin back, and he's like, by the way, after this, I want you to kill Moog.
Because she's like, that's your only naval ally, so that's pretty stupid. And he's like, I have the Hesperians. She's like, where are they?
Where are they? And he's like, don't worry, they're coming. And I can't have Moog and her dirty, dirty opium and thwarting all the battles. And we're going to have to
like just let her deal. Like, just leave her alone.
And he's like, nope, I can't do it. Call it insurance. We need to make sure she's out of power. And so Bryn kind of leaves and she's like, yeah, it's getting to the point where I have to admit Viceroy is not a good dude and he's willing to throw anyone over. So she sends out a message to Moog and she parrots what Viceroy just said, calling it insurance. She goes to bed or she like tries to go to bed and Nezha comes knocking on her door, crying, saying, I had a bad dream about you. And he takes her out to the water. He's like, I just don't want you to die. I care about you. Why don't you understand? And then he says, it's not my fault that other people abused you. And she knows he's talking about Alton. And she's like, Alton didn't abuse me. And it's like, maybe he did.
I found that so strange, though, that of all people, Nezha is saying he was your abuser.
And it's like, Nezha, you're her abuser. You both were. Like, two things can be true at once. Alton did physically abuse Rin. Alton wasn't a great guy. And he was, like, in the context of this, he was also her commander. So, like, technically in this world, it is appropriate for commanders to act that way. I'm not saying it is accurate.
We're not condoning that.
We're not condoning it. Alton was still terrible for what he did, but it did happen. Nezha is just a guy who likes her and doesn't understand how to emote correctly. And
they're
he
very
has physically
different
abused
things.
her. So like one, yes, is bad. One is terrible and inexcusable. So I hate him so much. Oh, I hate this guy.
Yeah, I remember reading that and thinking, are you kidding me? You're calling out Alton, you of all people.
You don't really have a leg to stand on, my boy. And then he's like, I just don't want us to end like this. I don't want it to end like this. And then he warns her that she has more enemies than she knows. But this is how he wants them to end, with happiness. And she goes, don't worry, we're not going to end because we have fire and water. We can take down wind.
We can do anything.
Okay, so the next day they're preparing to fight. They know Chang'an has all of the boats strapped together to make sure Phelan can't rip them out of the water and to like keep more people aboard so that they can rush the land and it's harder to fight. Rin goes out flying. She can't really see Phelan anywhere. She drops oil and she hits it with fire to kind of hurry the fleet up. And she, like, for the first time ever, feels like she is in control of the fire and not having like the Phoenix control her, but she's kind of like focusing the god's power.
Right.
And she still doesn't really see Phelan, but then they see the like Chang'an's people going up to Nezha's boats and they're going to get to him. And she's scared because she cares about Nezha so much.
Like, Nezha's in trouble.
I must go get him. And so she goes down to save him and she lands badly. Her dive is too steep. And she keeps like looking for him. She lands on board and instead of being helpful, she's like, where's Nezha? Where is my boyfriend?
Exactly. Instead of being helpful, that's the key here. Instead of being helpful, she is often calling out other people for not being helpful. But then what does she do when she could be helpful? Where's Nezha?
I know. And then she sees like Nezha and a handful of the Republican soldiers trying to duel with General Jun's platoon. And she's like, thank God he's still alive. And then Nezha is fighting Jun. He actually fights him into submission. And Nezha's like, my father doesn't want you dead. Because again, Viceroy wants to use everyone who's actually useful to him until the moment they aren't. And Jun tries to commit suicide and Nezha stops him. And by cutting off Jun's hand. And he like tells Nezha that he created him and he's like, you taught me the meaning of fear. And it's like, no, he actually did teach you. You were one of his,
he taught you some things. You're one of his pupils.
Very selective for memory. And then they think about Rin is like, could you killed him or something? And he's like, no, I'm not going to do that. He's helpful. And Jun takes that to jump off into the river and get away.
Swims away.
And he does like...
He is pretty long lasting in the series, honestly.
Yeah. And Nezha yells at her and she's like, I'm not the one who I didn't push him into the river.
Well, exactly. He's like, it's all your fault. And she's like, seriously? Like, I just threw him out there?
And then all of a sudden, Xiang'an comes to fight with them. He is like trying to fight against Nezha. Nezha is barely useful in this. And she's like, I have to help him. This final section was the most like, we're in love. And I'm like, okay, this feels a little on the nose, Kuang.
It was a little too much. Too much.
We had 6 parts to get here, or 5 other parts to get here. Yeah. And this is the first one where it's like, oh, we're in love. We're in love. And it's like, are you?
Even like the rest of the psych being like, you guys are in love. It's like not quite as bad as them being like, I'm going to lightly kiss him on the forehead. Like, no, come on.
Like, I know. Or like, I saw how pretty he was. All we've gotten is her like looking at his pretty skin for like 5 sections. And then in this final section, she's like, where is he? Where's my boyfriend? And it's like, this feels so unnecessary. Anyway,
too much.
She squeezed her eyes shut, trying to concentrate to pray. Please, I need you. Except she's praying for the phoenix, but you know it's for Nezha, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, she wasn't sure what she was praying to, but it was for Nezha.
But anyway, the phoenix comes, the flames burst out of every part of her, and there is like a fire that goes onto Xiang'an, and he stops moving, and he has bubbling skin. And Nezha asks to kill him himself. And so he wakes up Xiang'an and then stabs him after he like begged pretty much to not be dead. And then he's like, it's over. And she's like, no, it's not. We are still in battle. And then all of a sudden there's a huge gale that comes in, tearing them apart. Rin is like flying through the air. And she's trying to calm herself on the water. She wants to make sure she's not going to die. And she sees Phelan above the air. Sorry. She also loses her sword during this, and she is like trying to find some kind of weapon to hit at him.
Right.
And she's like trying to dry herself off all the time, which is very cool imagery of her like steaming off all the water on her wings so she can fly. And she keeps reminding herself that Phelan is gone, even if she doesn't want him to be. And so they end up trying to fight. And she knows that Phelan won't kill her because the Empress wants her, because she remembers words he said back in Boyang, saying that like, she told us not to kill you. And so she kind of throws it in his face that she doesn't want her broken. And so she thinks about how to kill a god, and she kind of tries to trick him, saying like, Phelan, I know you're still in there. I saw Alton in the afterlife.
She tries to pull an Alton where she's like, maybe I can find the person within.
But she also admits like, probably not, but like
at least this isn't gonna work.
This isn't gonna work, but I can maybe trick him. And so she's like, he does care. You do care. It's okay. And Phelan's like, you mean nothing to me. I do not care who you are. And she's like, okay. And then she's like, I'm your commander. I call the psych. And then she shoots fire towards him, but at the cliff wall, and buries him underneath it, which is so funny because later someone's like, it'll take him years to get out of there. And I'm like, he's a god. Like,
probably not.
I know a mountain just came down on him, but I think like years, hundreds of years is a reach. Like, okay.
Considering he was just like busting apart things, I don't know about that.
Yeah, it just seemed very weird to be like, Phelan taken down by a bunch of rocks. Like,
good thing he's out of the way.
Guess he's out because Kuang decided it was time to stop writing about him. So Rin like is exhausted. She can't believe that they might be winning. She turns to the valley and she sees that like there's enormous destruction. Oh, and during this time she also noticed that a bunch of troops were headed to the valley, and she was able to save the Southerners by writing in the sky valley.
Which, how obvious can we possibly be here? Like literally she's writing
I can fly twice as high. So anyway, that was another thing she did. And then she feels like her fire is going out. She's been following, she hasn't really noticed. And then she is like going towards Katai, and she doesn't really hear him, but he's screaming something at her. And then she sees a javelin shoot past her midriff, and it hits her. And a javelin strikes her in the shoulder, and she can't remove it because it's like stuck in there. And every time she tries to remove it, it just digs deeper and deeper into her body. So she falls into the water. She can't breathe. She thinks she's going to die.
And who kisses her back to life? Nezha. He literally kisses her back to life.
But also, I hate when like books are like, "Oh my god, he's kissing me," and it's like, no, he's just breathing air into me.
I'm CPR.
I'm like, usually you could tell the difference. Like, it's not gonna be like.
And this was a time
like a bad kid.
For, like, currently, I think the CPR standard is to just do compressions, chest compressions. You don't worry as much about the breathing air.
Breathing, yeah.
So at this point, CPR was still breathing was involved, but Rin definitely is like, he's kissing me back to life. She like has that thought.
I would argue that isn't CPR because she's still like alive and awake. It's more like she's afraid of the water. He gives her air because he can breathe underwater.
Okay.
So like it's not CPR where he's like pushing I did say CPR. It's my fault, not yours. But like he is pushing,
I think I said it first, maybe.
Okay. He is pushing air into her lungs because he can breathe underwater. But like when I think about someone breathing underwater, it's technically like fish-like, because like you know how fish keep their mouths open. Like if that were coming at me, I wouldn't be like, this man is about to kiss me. I just think that looks like a really bad kiss.
Is going to come out of his mouth.
When did you have your first kiss, Rin? Well, I was dying in water.
And she's thinking too, like, this isn't a bad way to go.
Yeah, she's like, I guess I could die now. I've like buried a god today. I've done enough. And then she like tries to grab at Nezha's face to get more air, which is also funny to me, which is actually a thing. They say that if you're drowning, you like go into panic mode.
Yep.
But then he kind of takes her to the surface. He doesn't really need to kick with his legs. He just kind of goes mermaid style. And he's trying to get her out of the water where they won't be too exposed. And then she gets out from the water. She is like getting flames against her body so she can get warm, and steam hisses at her clothes as they dry off. And then she's trying to get the contraption off, but she can't seem to. She's bleeding. And then Nezha is like curled up in a small trembling ball because he's in so much pain because he's not used to calling his dragon. And she like she's kind of freaking out. She needs to get opium. She can't find it. And he's like, I brought it. And she gives him some of the opium. He makes sure that she doesn't give him too much. She does give him way too much.
I was gonna say, I thought she gave him too much because he's like, no, that's too much. And she's like, no, take it.
And then he gets knocked out. And she's like, okay, I'll send someone for you. And then she goes, and he's like, oh no, look. And they see blue flags against a brilliant sun. So the Hesperians have arrived, I believe. And then Dashi
like,
comes.
There's just tons of ships and everything.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden Dashi comes upon them and she's like, how lovely. Look at the two little lovebirds. Isn't everyone full of love? She doesn't say any of this. I just imagine it's what's going on in her head.
I mean, kind of. We can infer that's what she's thinking.
Yes. She's just screaming it really loudly. One of my favorite phrases to use, everyone, is when I'm talking about someone and they're like, did you say that to them? I always go, no, but I was thinking it really loudly, so maybe they heard me. Yeah. That is always something I say.
Right.
People do laugh at me, so I am funny. So she's just thinking it really loudly in her head. So Rin is like, I hate her beauty. She scares me, but she's so there's something about her. It's almost serpentine. And Daji is pretty much controlling her movements, so she can't get to any of her weapons. She could pretty much convince Rin to want to kill herself. And Dashi's like, could you please listen? You don't get it. Like, and she tells Rin she's clever for her wings. And Rin is like, well, your best weapon was Phelan, and now he's gone. She's like, well, he was a pain in the first place. Like, he wouldn't do anything. I had to convince him of everything. And Dashi is trying to point out that there's no victors in this fight, that like Viceroy has
Right.
ensured a civil war, that this will go on for decades. There are so many fractures. And you can tell that she's also in a lot of pain and like wounded.
Mhm.
So
Well,
they,
she shows Rin the flashbacks at this point.
yes. Well, and she also notes that Daji notes that she got past the seal, and she's like, oh, you
Yes.
found Sorkinsira. And she's like, that old bat is still alive. And she says that she knows that she probably found another anchor, and she doesn't know who it is. So
She's like, oh, is it him? Like
Right.
Nezha?
Is it Nezha? No.
Because he's on his way out, it looks like.
Yeah. And then Rin is like, the Catraids show me what you did. And Dashi's like, really? And she's like, yeah, I saw you attack them. I saw you three murder Severai. And Dashi's like, don't say that name. And so she realized that she kind of pissed her off. And she's like, the Catraids should have surrendered. They were so stubborn. We were just trying to do what we needed to do. And she calls Rin a hypocrite, saying that she acted out of necessity, which is the same thing that Rin does all the time. And she's like, we acquired more power than any mortal should have a right to, which means we have to make the decision no one else can. So with great power comes great responsibility. Except I am going to take over the world with it. And Rin is like, you hurt everything you touch. And she's like, so do you.
Right.
Like,
We are the same.
And Rin is like, and she's like, would you have done anything different had you been given the chance? Like, when you make the same mistakes all over again? And Rin is like, yeah, I probably would. So she's like, let's talk more. And Rin is like, no. And so the Phoenix starts saying that she will not kneel when Dashi tells her to kneel. And they're at a battle again. Ray just like drowning out the hypnosis. And Ren is noting like all that Dashi has done, which is everything Dashi's done to her, like selling out the Spirales, killing Alton, starting the war. And she keeps trying, but Dashi's almost winning. And she realizes she's feeling the ecstasy that Alton once pushed her for. And she kind of realizes that Dashi cannot resist her, that she is part of the Phoenix and she can do this. And Rin takes her fist and she smashes it into the wood next to Dashi's face, missing it by an inch. And the entire ship is groaning because Rin is so powerful. And then she draws her fist back again and she hits Dashi in the jaw. And she sees that she's actually caused her physical pain, and she knows that Dashi is weak. And oh no, Dashi calls Rin weak.
Right.
And because she doesn't know what to do with her power. And Rin is like, I know exactly what to do with my power. And she starts burning Dashi, but she realizes that she can't kill her. She wants to destroy her. And Dashi's trying to get her to look at her, and Rin tries to fight it by popping her eyes. And she gets one of the sockets. It is very, very gross. And she realizes that even though she wants to kill her, she wants to know what happened to Zhang, to Daji, Rija, and how they become the monsters they did. And visions start fluttering through her head. She sees the city burning the way Arlong burned. She sees all the cities and their inhabitants crouched by their doorstep. This was how the Nikara Empire under Mugani's occupation looked. And Daji knows that they couldn't do anything. They were too weak. And they told us that we were worthless. And when they escaped, they had to get the power to change the fate of the empire. And Rin's like, that doesn't excuse anything. And she's like, yes, it does. It excuses everything. Like, we needed to kill that little Severai. We needed to do exactly what we needed. This took sacrifice. And she sees the trifecta kneeling by the body of Severai, who is just one girl. And the choice seems so clear and obvious that like you have to kill one to save everyone else.
Save a bunch of people.
And she's like, we didn't want to kill her. She saved us. She convinced the Catraids to take us in, and Jiang loved her. But they had to because their allies wanted the land, and Sorkinsira said no, and they needed to win it. So they needed to give the Catraids land over to unite the warlords, and they weren't going to throw it away. And Rin's like, then you gave away a ton of land to the Muganese and you sold us out. And she's like, I was just trying to give us like over with a little bit of occupation. Which, I mean, it's a leader, you have to make the hard decisions, but this is a tough section to get through.
Right.
And Dashi tries to like push out what she's thinking. And Rin kind of realizes she doesn't believe in Viceroy's Republic, not anymore, because Rin doesn't really trust in the good of everyone. She doesn't trust the Hesperians, but she doesn't know what Dashi wanted her to do. And Dashi is kind of like, you could kill me and you'd probably win, and I would do it. And she wants to, but she just can't do it. And Dashi points out that like Viceroy will have no use for her and he'll discard her as one of her allies without blinking. And Dashi tries to get Rin to come with her, and she can't do it. And Dashi's like, well, you'll need me one day. I'm leaving you here. And she gives Rin a final viewing of Dashi in a huddled heap on the ground being violated, or she has blood down her thighs. And Rija is there sprawled on the ground unconscious, with Zhang lying on his side screaming as a man kicked him in the ribs. And the tormentor is not Muganese, they are Hesperian. And the children are
so then it kind of all makes sense to Rin, like, oh, I get it.
So that it's a Hesperian soldier who raped Dashi and a Muganese soldier who ended up saving her. And that's why the Empress locked into this since childhood, that the Muganese were never a real enemy. They tried to serve a mad emperor, but they were still human and they still just wanted an occupation. But the Hesperians are the ones who don't see them as real people. And she's like, I warned you, you didn't listen. These Hesperians are devils. They're going to destroy our world. And they have one singular version of the future, and we're not in it because it is white supremacist. And she's like, you'll need an ally. And Dashi says, think about it, figure out who you're fighting for, and then when you know, come find me. And then Venka comes and she finds Rin, and she's like, is everything okay? What's my name? And Rin's like, just help me up. And Venka's like,
she's
you're
like,
fine.
that fits.
And I love it because like Ty comes up and he's kind of annoyed with Rin and Venka. And Rin's like, Venka gets it. She's like, she gets my humor. She gets how funny we have to be. And Katai is just scared. And so they notice that like Rin is really taken down. And she said that the Empress got away. And Katai asks if she let her go. And she's like, I'm not sure I could answer that, you know? And she says, I don't know. And Katai says, you don't know, or you won't tell me. And she's like, I thought it would be clear. But now I don't really know. And he's like, yeah, I get it. Also keep that to yourself.
Right.
Never tell anyone. So Rin is like in searing pain. She has to recover. And like Venka's like, rest now. We're going to have to be part of cleanup. And they're asking what's happened. They're saying, well, the empire hasn't exactly surrendered. They're decapitated, but the tiger horse and snake are still holding out. And the wolf meat general is dead, Chang'an. And they have captured Solon alive. Jun did make it out, though.
He's got like a big following, so he'll probably get people rallied together over in Tiger Province.
Because that's what Jin is good for. And they say that it'll be over soon because they have help because the Hesperians are there. And then they ask what happened to the militia deserters. They say that they mostly got them in the mountains. And, you know, all that stuff is happening. Rin feels terrible. And Venka's like, you'll get your whole mobility back. It's just going to be scarring. It's because you're always ugly, but it won't make a difference. And Rin is like, go fuck yourself. And so they leave. Rin pulls on a shirt. She looks at herself. Again, she always finds herself so unattractive, but she is not. But she does look broken and battered. And Kataya walks in when she is shirtless. And she's like, I'm sorry. And he's like, I was just seeing if you'd be up. Like, and he does apologize because he didn't pad the gears and the wings properly because they did not have time. And so it almost severed her spine. So, and she's like, did you feel it too? And he's like, just a little. And she's like, he's obviously very hurt. Like, he just doesn't want to tell her.
Well, and then she finds out that they like have all the same scars. She's
Yeah.
like, but yours are prettier. And he's like, okay,
it's still a scar. Calm down. And she says she probably won't be able to fly for a while. And he's like, you won't have to. And all the psych are okay. And she's like, is Phelan properly dead? And he's like, it doesn't matter. He's buried under thousands of tons of rocks. And it's like, it does matter. And apparently
we need to know.
Nezha has been running to her side. And she tells Katai everything about him. And I do appreciate this about Katai, where she tells him everything. And he's like, well, that made sense. Like, if he's in like chronic pain his entire life, like he may be miserable. And that's why he makes other people feel miserable. And she's like, I understand exactly what he's feeling, and it's not that. And he's like, you actually don't know because you don't know much about this. So like, we can't know. And so she and he's like, why are you so upset about this? Why are you so hard on him? And she's kind of saying like, I'm jealous that he had the privilege to never have to use this. Like, he gets to hide this. He gets to be here. He gets to be free. And I'm poked and I'm prodded and I don't get to do this. And like, she's like, so of course I'm angry at him. And he kind of says that like, I hate this part because Kataya's like, last book, Kataya was like, I don't care if he's dead. And this one, he's like, listen, I've known him for a long time. You
need to be a little more sympathetic.
But he's also really fragile. And it's like, no. So anyway, they have Solin's trial, quote unquote, and they give him the option of suicide. They're coming for me. But
that was loud.
My windows are open.
I was like, geez, is there a motorcycle in your room?
It's like 66 degrees. So all of my windows are open because I don't have to pay for air conditioning when it's like this. And so anyway, they offer him suicide, but he does not take it. And then Visera has Rin do it. And she kills him, and Solon calls her a puppet. And he says, I thought you might be the smart one, but you let him take everything he needs from you and just rolled over like a whore. So he's also on really strong footing here.
Right.
And then Rin like wants to leave immediately, but she can't really figure it out. They've heard silence from Moag. Katai convinces her that they can't leave too quickly. Everything has to kind of be seemingly fine, and she has to look like she's just going to do whatever they need to. She notes that Sister Petra hasn't summoned her, and she then has to go travel in the parade in like this wrap dress that Becca has to help put on. She could barely breathe, she could barely walk, but she has to walk to make it look like it's a victory. And Nezha is like, oh my gosh, you look so good. And she's like stumbling to my face. And they don't really talk. She does say, thank you for saving me. It's like, of course, how could it go over if I let our Spearly die?
Right.
Yeah. And so anyway, he asks if she killed Dashi, and she's like, of course, you trust me, right? And he's like, yeah. And it's just like, you didn't have to say it that way, Rin. You know what you don't have to do when you're lying to someone? You trust me, right, Laura?
Oh, gosh.
I'm getting blonde hair. Like, why? I don't know. But anyway, Nezha's like, of course I trust you. And it's like, neither of you trust the other person. Apparently the parade is pathetic because no one wants to come out and get food. Like there's no food, there's nothing. There's just like, oh, look, you won. And it's just not, the city is hurting. It doesn't look great. The infirmaries are overcrowded and no one is happy. This is just a statement of victory. And Katai notes that the Southern warlords aren't there. That she hasn't seen them all day. They can't have left because the refugee camps are still there. And they note that it might be a show of protest. And she's kind of wondering what this means for the Republic because it's already in upset. And she also notes that they're like burning some bodies at sea for like the pomp and circumstance when they're really just going to burn other bodies on land. And they have to light arrows that gets them to the rafts. And Rin is like, why didn't I do that? And they're like, because it wouldn't be significant if they need their aim to be true. And she goes over and she tells the psych that they need to leave and like pretty much tonight. And Baji and Suni are like, good, we're ready to go, let's do it. And they're like, well, we're supposed to be on watch, so they decide to do it like when morning breaks. And they are upset and they are not sure what to do after this. But Rin can't really sleep. She feels like pacing the hallways, but she doesn't want to set off any issues. And she really wished Moag had returned her missive. And she notes that they're kind of gambling. And then guess who comes to her door but Nezha?
Of course he does.
Like, we're going to go drinking and celebrating. Come with us. A few drinks won't hurt. And so they go out onto the roof where Venka and Katai are being brought up, and they drink and they have beautiful times. And Rin kind of drinks even though she knows it's a mistake because they're supposed to be leaving. And they kind of just chat and talk about being curious and what they've learned through this, and they kind of have fun and reminisce. And they kind of note that like this has been a relatively short war, because like this has really only been going on for 16 months when the first Poppy War was 3 years, the second was 5 years, and the Red Emperor battles took about 7. And Rin is like, how could you do this for 7 years? Like, and Katai is like, well, soldiers get bored, aristocrats don't. Like, this is just a game to them. It's not real. And now they're kind of talking about like, what are we going to do next? What would they have done without war? And Nezha is like, Katai, you would have been at the Yulu Academy looking at groundbreaking research, and you would have been an accountant. And
he's like, don't be putting down accounting.
I know. And Rin is kind of like, I'd still be doing wars. I'm good at war. It's what I'm built for. I don't know what else to tell you guys. And she kind of points out that the only thing permanent about the Empire is war. And she realizes the only thing about her might be war as well, because she can't imagine life as not being a soldier, which gets into the whole PTSD and discomfort and issues. And they talk about like becoming ministers or magistrates and government and all this issue. And they talk about how Nezha wants to make his daddy happy. And he's still being like, it's going to be glorious. We're going to have a beautiful country. There's more manpower than the Hesperians. They're going to have all these natural resources. They're going to be great now that they've become a republic, because that fixes everything.
Just great.
Yeah. And anyway, so Venka starts puking, so Katai takes her down and leaves the two of them alone. And Rin is like, don't worry, I'll be back in an hour. And they're both drunk. They walk down to the water together. And Rin is just like thinking this is a very nice moment between the two of them. And then he asks her why she hated him in school.
And I hate that moment.
And he's like, we hated each other. That's not normal. And she's like, you scared me. Like, if you kept going, I'd have to leave. This was my entire life.
She's like, I was afraid of you because you were a threat to my survival.
And he's like, I never realized. And she's like, really? You didn't?
How could you not?
And he's
How
like,
could you
it
not
never
realize?
crossed my mind. And she's like, we weren't on the same level. You knew it. You knew that you had this power. How could you not? I couldn't retaliate. You were rich, I was poor, and you exploited it. And she's like, the fact that this never crossed your mind, the stakes were vastly different, is frustrating, to be frank. And it's like, what a great way to tell him to like go fuck himself. Like, and so then she asks if he's ever going to go back to the grotto, because like gods can't be physical things. So they need mortal conduits. And so whatever the dragon is, it's beatable. And she's like, maybe it was a person once, but I buried God before. I could do it again. And he fights with her on it. And then he asks her another question saying, did you mean it when you thought we should have all of the shaman armies? And she's like, yeah, we would never lose a war again. Like we would be all powerful. And he's like, well, that's what the Hesperians are afraid of. And she's like, of course they're afraid of it. Like Tarket is, and then he tells her that Tarket is seeking a moratorium on shamanic activity, saying you can't do it or you'll be punished. And she's like, well, I just got my fire back, so there's no way. And she tells him good luck. And then he presses into her scar, and then he literally stabs her in the back. And he had kissed her, apparently, which is gross. She wakes up. She realizes she's vomited in her sleep. She's chained to a wall. She can't get out. The door opens, and the Nezha's mom is there, and she's just screaming at her, saying that Rin should have saved Nezha. And Rin is like, wait, did you think you could study me and fix Nezha? Like, you're an idiot. Did the Hesperians say that they could cure his dragon mark? And she's like so mad that she figured it out when it's the easiest thing to call. And she's like, don't hurt me. Hurting me won't fix your son. Your son's always like this. You guys are just a bunch of racist assholes. And Sakara is like, no, you're just chaos. You're chaos incarnate. You're lying to me. And then she points outside, and Rin realizes that they're leading Suni and Baji up to be killed, and they are murdered with the guns. And
sad.
Yes. And Rin realizes that she has been drugged, and Sakara's like, chaos will die. And Rin's like, you don't know anything about our gods. You have no idea. And Rin is able to make a small flame, and she sets Sakara's robes on fire, which good for her. And then everyone comes in, and they're like, oh my gosh, you shouldn't be in here. And Sakara's like, she should be sedated. And it's like, yeah, and you're reckless. Like, you're an idiot. Don't just come in here. And Eridan is Superman. Vicer comes in, and he's like, yeah, you did everything for me, but like I now have this fleet, and like they will be all powerful, and it doesn't matter. Like, this is what I need. And he points out that she killed one of the Hesperian men. She's like, he was raping a girl. And he's like, well, I taught you that you need to balance out your power. So it doesn't matter to be what the guy was doing, because we needed to be in control. And then General Tarket comes in, and he says that she's coming with them. They're going to study her back in Hesperia. And Petra is in there, and Ren like kind of yells at them. Petra is like, don't worry, chaos is clever. I thought I could save you, but now I know I can't. And Rin bites Petra and makes her bleed. And then she makes herself look like an animal to scare them, because she's like, I will show them what being scared looks like. And then she's mad at herself because she feels like she fulfilled their expectations, which goes to show you how exhausting it must be to be in this kind of place. And then Petra's like, I'll pray for you. And Ren's like, pray for yourself. And that's about how I feel. And Viceroy tells her that like, it doesn't matter that she can call a god when like August, an idiotic boy, can kill them with a gun. It just does not matter. And Tarket says that they will not keep her in the ship until they must leave. And Vicer's like, all you gotta do is spray water on her and keep her shackled.
Like, it's not that simple, but
the easy, just a lot of
Just get a little spray bottle. Psh, psh.
and they said that there's going to be a consortium here. And she pretty much finds out that like the Hesperians are going to have people here watching everything they do to make sure that they're going to be civilized, and Viceroy is going to help them pretty much get everything in power. And she sells Nezha out because he betrayed her and stabbed her in the back.
So he literally stabbed her in the back, so it's time.
And she's like, I saved you, I killed Phelan. And he's like, your history will remember you and then praise me for the decisions I make. And she's like, hey Tarket, did you know that you should take Nezha too if you want people who can call gods, because he can do it. And Tarket is like, is it true? And he's like, no, of course not. And she's like, Tarket you saw it. The water, that wasn't the wind, that was Nezha. And she's like, you always knew. Nezha went to the grotto because you let him. And she realizes that he let his children go down there to see what would happen because he could sacrifice 2 little boys and not his firstborn.
Yep.
And he's like, were you hoping he'd die, or you wanted a shaman, didn't you? And you wanted the dragon so you can make him a weapon of your own. And saying he wanted to experiment. And she's like, that's why your wife hates me and why she hates all shamans. And that's why your son hates you. And she's like, Petra already knows, go talk to her. And Viceroy is trying to cover up because that is his only son left. And he tells her that the House of Yin has always done what it needed to do. Rin pretty much wants to die, which fair enough. And she's just upset that she hasn't been able to kill herself yet. And then she starts feeling something written into her arm, and she feels like it's a spider. And then she realizes that it's Katai and it's happening to him. And she realizes he's writing a note into her arm, and he asks her where she is. And she tells him Palace 1-3, and then she tries to smear the blood. And then she hears him coming up the window, and he has to break in. He gets inside, and then he's trying to get her out. She's sedated. They can't really do anything, and he has to literally crush her hand to get it out of the shackle before someone comes in. And he pulls her out of the window. She realizes like her hand is pretty much limp, as is his, and they have to get down the tower. So Katai does, because he can. And then he knows that they have a distraction to get out of the palace, and she sees Ramza running in the moonlight.
I know.
And she sees all the guards going after him.
I know.
She's like, he's gonna get himself killed, and he's like, I know. And
like he did it on
can't
purpose.
help him, and he did it on purpose. And he sets off bombs, and the guards are firing at him, and poor Ramza. So all the psych are dead now, and it makes me sad. Anyway, she's upset, of course, and Katai's like, he bought us an escape window, don't let him die for nothing. So then they get out, and they're in Hesperian military uniforms, and they're hidden under helmets, and then the boatman pops up, and it is Venka.
So we still have Venka, Katai, and Rin of the psych.
That's true, but none of like the OG ones. It just
I know.
Me sad. But Venka gets them out into the river, and they cover her up. And Venka's like, Father tipped me off. I knew something weird was happening. And she wasn't really sure what it was. And then they found out what happened to Rin, and that they got some of the men from the southern province. And Venka, Rin gets Venka, tries to convince Venka to go back, because she's like, you're committing treason. If you go back now, no one can put it on you. You can live your life. You can still be like in privilege, which shows like Rin cares. And Venka's just like, no, I've made my decision. It's you guys. You guys are the only ones who cared about me. And like, I'm not doing this. I have no life to get back to. My family disowned me. There's nothing wrong with me. And I guess that's what I really like about Venka is like, she's not willing to admit anything is wrong with her, but she is willing to admit like, I may not be the best fighter. You don't want to waste this on me, but she has value in herself and wants to move forward. And I think that that's amazing. And so Katai notes that Viceroy is going after the Southern warlords. They have one of them in the cells, but they're going to try to see if they got them out. The rooster warlord put up a fight, so they shot him when riots started. The camps have turned into war zones. Pretty much like, hey, if you don't give a crap about the little people during unrest, guess what happens, you know? And Rin asks about Kasegi and realizes that neither of them know who that is. I know. And so then they see someone sitting at the pier, and it's Nezha, and Rin tries to kill him, and Katai says that she will not do that. And Venka tries to put 2 arrows across the harbor, and Nezha gets away from them. And Katai says he's letting us go. And it's like, so?
Right.
And Venka's like, is he on our side? And she's like, no, he's not. He's never going to like come on our side. Jinja is killed and Mingsa is dead. So like Nezha is the only male heir, and he will definitely let his dad do what he needs to do. And she says, this is my fault. And he's like, Katai's like, no, it's not. And he stabbed you, and come on, girl. So they get out onto the ships, and they bore a flag of the Dragon province, but they're opium skimmers. So one of Moag's women are there. And they're like, thanks for the warning. We got the Monkey Lord. We're getting out of here. Don't worry about it. And so Rin finds out that like they have a decoy ship. They're going to run. And she gets her hand set. And they're like, you may never get any movement in this again, which is also sad because poor Katai did that to both of them. And she kind of points out that like, the Hesperians were only supposed to be there for military support and trade negotiations, but it didn't really go that way. And Tarkat has staked his claim on the continent. They've kind of say that like the treaty terms are atrocious. Hesperians got their trade rights, but they waived, Nikarans have waived their rights to any tariff, and they get to build military bases on Nikara soil and missionaries. And Viceroy signed every clause. He didn't put up a fight, and they know he probably doesn't have any choice. Everything he does has to be approved by the consortium. And Nikon is therefore screwed over. And she's like, Viceroy hates that he probably gave up control, but he knows it's better than doing this for the emperor. And to have like fake power than no power. And she's like, we're going to be, and Katai's like, we'll be slaves in our own country. And they're like, no. They're not much into forced labor anymore, but economic coercion, totally. I know. Oh, God, white people suck. And Ren's like, we'll fight back. We'll get to the south. Like, we could get food. We can control the food. And Ren's like, I'm not running. I'm fighting. We're going to get the Southerners. We're going to fight this. And she's like, we can do this. We can get farmers and peasants here. We can win. And she's like, and one of the people is like, hey, they'll fight for her. Like, she is like a myth in the South. She's amazing. She can fly. She can do this. And Katai's like, I don't want to turn you into a figurehead. And she's like, I'm not. I'm a general. Like, this is what I was built for. Everyone kept telling me to do it. And now I can do this. She won't be Viceroy's weapon. She's just going to make sure that she destroys everyone who needs to be destroyed. She'll have more power than anyone, Alton Viceroy, and she won't be taking orders. And Katai's like, they aren't trained. They aren't armed. And she's like, okay. Like, she's kind of just down. This is her big moment, that people have been like pushed down, pushed around. And she knows that Nezha said she once that she couldn't fight a war on her own. And she's like, no, but we will have tons of bodies. And Katai's like, so we're going to war against Nezha? And she's like, no, the Republic declared war on us and he chose a side. So Nezha, she kind of sees that he is the North and she will never be that. And she will make him pay. And she hears the phoenix say, let it smolder, let it grow, all this hate.
I will do it.
At last we agree. And she's like, let Nezha come for us. I will burn the heart out of his chest. And they're going to go against the strongest force in the world, thus ending the Dragon Republic. What a wild ride.
What'd you think?
I really like these books. I think they're really good. I do think I like the Poppy War a little bit better, but only because there's so much in this book thrown in that I think I got a little bit of whiplash, but I don't think that that's a negative. I just think it's a taste. Like,
I know that it's a popular take that people don't like this second book.
I really like the second book. I
really liked it too.
Book. I think it has a lot of stakes. I think it raises the stakes really well. Like, I just think it's a good book. Like, I really like this series. I often think like a lot of books we've read, fantasy genre, have a lot of the same issues as Kuang with like a lot more mature authors. And so sometimes I think they get like almost bonus points for writing a bit more maturely, where Kuang's writing is relatively new and relatively green, but that doesn't mean it's lesser. Like, it has a lot
Honestly, I think the writing is excellent.
I think the writing is excellent too, but like the way she characterizes sometimes and the way she has people bouncing around, I think you could critique it as saying like, oh, it's not as powerful, but I actually think it's what makes it powerful. Is like, people don't make sense, and that's the point of her novel. So like, characters are often hypocrites, and in one breath they're saying something, and in the next breath they're saying the exact same opposite when it suits them. And I think that is helpful, and you never know what a character is going to do, but when they act that way, you're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Like, and you said you prefer this book to the Poppy War.
I like them both. I think that I maybe do prefer this one a little bit, but I think just from the sense of the way that it ramps up, I think I prefer that.
I think this is probably one of my favorite sequels I've ever read out of sequels.
Yeah. And maybe that's what I'm getting at more, is that it's from a sequel standpoint, it's excellent.
We know that second books are notoriously a little bit of a downer because they're the middle book, especially in a trilogy. They're a middle book. They don't have the benefit of having build up where you're being introduced to characters. So you get to meet everyone and you get that like nostalgia. You already know the cast of characters, you're watching them. And a lot of times it feels like it's just a ramp up for the third novel. And I honestly I didn't know what to expect. I almost expected Daji to die in the first third of this book. Like, it wouldn't have shocked me if she had died. And then we found out that there was a new big bad. And we did find out there was a new big bad. But I like how Kuang did it, because the Hesperians are the big bad. White supremacy is awful. And that's good, because then we get to see the messiness of everyone else and how they're all making mistakes. And I think that is a really interesting take, to be like, no one in this book is all bad except for the people who literally are dehumanizing a nation. Like, everyone else is just trying to either get like power, and like there are blind spots, but the worst people are the ones who do not see everyone else as humans. And just want control or religious zealotry or everything else. Like, I can't believe she went this hard in her first trilogy, but she did.
I mean, I think it's really a great book, and I think the way that she can make characters seem so human is fantastic.
I would definitely agree. Everyone feels so real on the page. It's a breath of fresh air from Wheel of Time. Like, I can't believe all of our discussions on this book and both books have been so detailed and so interesting. And we both come at it from different takes at certain points. We both hate Nezha, but like, he's given great discussion on like what internalized racism and misogyny and all this stuff like looks like. And Vaisra, they did such a good job of like, she did such a good job at following along to like lead us to disliking him, and using Rin as like the way to not know what was going to happen from one scene to the next. So, and I don't know, I love how Rin is kind of a hothead and just a giant nightmare of a person. Like,
I mean, she's the protagonist. You can't not like her.
Well, lots of people don't. Lots of people hate Rin.
Interesting take.
Because a lot of people think she's like a hothead. She's a hypocrite. She,
like, I mean, she is, but that's the thing. That's why you like her, because she's real. That so many people in the real world don't realize how they themselves are hypocrites.
Right. Well, I also do think that sometimes like the fantasy genre in the adult sphere is very male dominated.
Mhm.
But actually young adult novels when we were growing up was very like fantasy adult
Mhm.
had a young adult had a lot of female protagonists and female writers. Like I grew up on young adult fantasy written by women.
Mhm.
And a lot of times it was a hot-headed female protagonist.
Yeah.
But like when you read them as an adult, you're like, why are they hot-headed again? This doesn't really feel like it has stakes. Or like the joke
Right.
in the books that should not be made in the 5th book when Harry starts like yelling at everyone. And everyone was like, why is there the sudden shift in Harry? And it's like, I don't know, he's 15 and he's been trying
He's
like people have tried to
going through
murder him
puberty?
like 5 different times and he just saw someone die in the last book. So like maybe
Right.
give him this one. I think sometimes people don't recognize the stakes that come with anger and
Right.
protagonists. And it's like,
And
yeah,
trauma.
Bryn is going to be angry and hot-headed and the worst sometimes. And she's been through a lot. Like Venka almost
she earned
murders
it.
a baby. And we
Mhm.
both like Venka in this book because it's like she's going through something. And if
Mhm.
you ignore it, you're not helping anyone.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know. What are your final thoughts on the book?
I really like it.
We're going to talk about characters in 2 weeks, but
I'm excited for the last book.
I'm so excited.
I
Neither
know
one
nothing
of us has
about
read it.
It was a fun reread, honestly. I listened to this one primarily, so
I know. I
fun
also
reread.
I also tab a lot of the sections of these books, ones that really speak to me.
Mhm.
And a lot of them are about devaluing personhood. So I think
Sure.
that was a major theme I found
Mhm.
in this. And about the whole, like, the world does not exist. This is not actually like this is not the only reality.
Mhm.
We are just living in this one. I think that kind of speaks to me on a fundamental, like, spiritual level. And it's interesting to read about it. And like everyone's views
Sure.
of themselves, Rin's view of Katai saying he's pure. Like it's just interesting. A lot of them are Rin just having internal dialogue about how frustrated she is with a person and how they do not seem to understand their own privilege or how they view her and how it's problematic. So this is a really interesting book. I can't wait to get into the characters with you. But with that, guys, next week is a very special week because we will not be reading on Wednesday. We will be coming at you.
We will be reading.
We will be reading on Wednesday, but we will be coming to you on Tuesday for a very special release of Laura and my discussion of Babel, R.F. Kuang's upcoming novel that will be published the day the episode comes out. We have the episode split into non-spoiler and spoiler territory. So everyone feel free to at least listen to the beginning on our gut reaction thoughts and pre-order the book today because Laura and I loved this book.
It's so good, guys.
I feel bad because I meant to post a picture of the book and I realized I'm going to have to dig through my photos and find my old one of when I reviewed it because I did give away our advanced reader copy to someone who wanted to read it. And Laura and I both have already pre-ordered copies, so you should pre-order a copy.
Yes.
We're very excited for this book. And if you can't pre-order it, get on your lending library list at the library because it should be there. So click on that and get on it. And we can't wait for you guys to listen in on that discussion. And then it will be regularly scheduled programming. The week after that, on Wednesday, we'll be covering the characters of the Dragon Republic. So that's a little bit of context corner for our podcast. We don't want to put out 2 episodes next week. Sorry, we're going to use the opportunity as a reason to get a little ahead of schedule on our recordings. But we're really excited for that. And then please remember to rate, review, and subscribe. Rating, reviewing, and subscribing is a great way to get other people in on this channel. Or just do what Hannah does. And when she sees reviews of the Poppy War, she says, oh my gosh, we're discussing it on our pod. You should join. So do that to all your friends on Bookstagram or on Twitter, like our good friend Sandra did last week.
Yes.
Thank you for everyone who has been reaching out and following along with us. We love hearing
Keep
your
doing
thoughts.
so.
Keep doing so. It's our our favorites. And you can email us any of your responses if you disagree with any of our takes at ourpod@gmail.com. That's owwrpod@gmail.com. Or go on our website to look at some of our more in-depth reviews at ourpod.com. So many different ways to reach out to us. And join us next Tuesday to dive into Babel. Bye.
Bye.